Everybody want to start. Everybody's excited on day one. Got the planner, the vision board, the goals taped to the mirror, and that's cute. But let me tell you something right now. Starting don't separate you from nobody. Finishing does. You don't get crowned for showing up. You get crowned when you finish the race. And I don't mean just crossing the finish line. I mean finishing the assignment, finishing the thing God gave you. Not your friend, not your cousin, not your coworker. You, that thing that keeps you up at night, that burden in your spirit, that vision you saw so clear but keep putting off. Let me be real. Most people quit right before the breakthrough. They get tired, they get distracted, they get emotional, and they let go. But you gotta be different. Because the real power isn't in starting, the real power is in finishing. You know why you gotta finish? Because God don't bless your intentions. He blesses your obedience. He blesses your completion. Jesus didn't say it is started. He said it is finished. That's the example. That's the standard. So what are you doing halfway done? What are you still thinking about that he already told you to do? That vision you've been sitting on? That gift you've been hiding? You keep waiting for motivation, but God already gave you a mission. And if you keep quitting, you're building a habit of stopping short, a habit of almost, and almost never changed a life. Almost and never built a legacy. Almost and never broke a generational curse. You don't even realize who's waiting on your finish. Somebody's freedom is tied to your discipline. Somebody's healing is tied to your courage. Somebody's breakthrough is sitting on the other side of your grind. But if you quit, they stay stuck. They stay bound because you were the one that was supposed to go first. You want to be great? Finish. You want to walk in purpose? Finish. Finish. You want divine favor to fall on your house, on your kids, on your name? Then finish what God gave you. I don't care if it's hard. I don't care if nobody claps for you. I don't care if they don't believe in it. Your yes was to God, not to them. And let me tell you, every time you finish something, you build something inside you. Confidence, integrity, grit, spiritual authority. You stop being someone who talks and you become someone who executes. The world don't move for dreamers, it moves for finishers. So I'm challenging you right now, pick that goal back up, dust it off. Get back in the fight. I know it's been a minute. I know you failed before. I know it's easier to quit, but we don't do easy. We do purpose. We do legacy. We do divine calling. Starting is easy. That's the truth most people don't want to hear. Anybody can start. Anybody can get hyped. Anybody can get emotional. Make a vision board. Write some goals down and tell their friends what they're about to do. That takes excitement, not commitment. But excitement fades. Feelings fade. What's left when the adrenaline is gone? What's left when nobody's clapping for you? That's where most people stop. And that's why finishing is rare. See, we live in a generation addicted to starting. Everybody wants to announce what they're doing, to announce what they're doing. When launching this, I'm starting that. Social media full of day ones, but almost nobody posts about day one at 57 when it's quiet, when it's hard, when it doesn't feel good. Because that's the part people don't want to go through. That's the grind nobody wants to sign up for. But that's the difference between those who play with potential and those who walk in purpose. Starting don't make you special. Finishing takes discipline. Finishing takes consistency when the fire is gone. Finishing takes you showing up even when the results don't match the effort yet. It takes late nights. It takes sacrifice. It takes doing the work when nobody is watching. When nobody is texting you a good job. When the only voice telling you to keep going is the one inside your own head. Starting doesn't demand that. Finishing does. Let me make it plain. There is nothing impressive about starting if you don't have the character to finish. People will say, oh, I tried, but trying isn't finishing. Trying is starting with an excuse on standby. But when you finish, and you finish, that's when the growth happens. That's when you change. That's when you go from talking about potential to living in purpose. The process of finishing breaks things off you. Laziness, fear, insecurity, doubt. It reshapes you into someone who can carry the weight of success. Because hear me, if you don't finish, you'll never know what was on the other side of that struggle. The truth is, the enemy doesn't care that you start. The enemy gets nervous when you decide you're not gonna quit this time. Because if you finish, that thing becomes a testimony. It becomes proof. It becomes light for somebody else stuck in darkness. Finishing is rare because it's not about talent. It's about grit. It's about commitment when the mood is gone. It's about honoring the assignment even when it doesn't feel good anymore. Everybody can start, but few have the mindset, the heart, and the faith to finish. And that's why finishers are respected. That's why they rise to the top. Not because they're the most gifted, but because they're the most consistent. So if you've started something and walked away, now is the time to go back. Because the blessing ain't the hype. The blessing is in the finish. Purpose doesn't show up when you start. It reveals itself when you finish. A lot of people go through life confused, lost, asking, oh, what am I here for? But what they don't understand is that purpose isn't something that's handed to you in the beginning. It's something that gets uncovered in the process of following through. When you finish what you start, even when it's hard, even when you don't feel like it, that's when purpose begins to speak. That's when clarity comes. Most people expect purpose to come with fireworks. And they think one moment will change everything. But purpose isn't about one moment. It's about a journey of obedience, consistency, and completion. You don't get to skip the hard parts. You don't get to bypass the process. It's in the finishing that you discover who you really are and what you're really capable of. That's where the real you shows up. See, the beginning is full of hype and excitement, but there's no way to it yet. No testing, no fire, no pressing, no pressing. But when you stick with something through the pain, when you keep going after failure, when you press through discouragement and delay, that's where the way to purpose is built. That's where you realize, oh, wait a minute, this isn't just something I do. This is who I am. You don't get that revelation when you quit. You only get it when you stay, when you fight, when you finish. Purpose is tied to completion because what you finish becomes part of your identity. Every time you finish something, you're telling yourself, I am dependable, I am disciplined, I am someone who shows up for the assignment. And when you do that consistently, purpose doesn't just show up, it becomes embedded in you. It becomes the fuel that drives your next step. Finishing gives you direction, confidence, and conviction that can't be bought or borrowed. There's a reason people who finish what they start walk different. They move with authority. Not because they're perfect, not because they've never struggled, but because they know what it means to push through. Purpose comes with power, and power doesn't fall on people who quit when it gets tough. Power falls on people who keep showing up when nobody's looking. Purpose finds people who are willing to finish the race even when it's uphill. And let's be clear, some of the things you're called to finish aren't just about you. They're about the people connected to your destiny. When you finish that degree, that book, that business, that ministry, you unlock not just your purpose, but you create space for others to find theirs. You set an example. You create legacy. You become a light. But that only happens when you finish. So if you feel stuck or lost in your purpose, maybe the answer isn't to search for something new. Maybe the answer is to go back and finish what you were supposed to complete. Because finishing doesn't just close a chapter, it opens your calling. God doesn't reward half done. He doesn't bless what you were thinking about doing. He doesn't elevate the ones who start something and walk away when it gets inconvenient. From the beginning of time, God has always honored completion. Look at creation. He didn't rest on day one. He didn't celebrate on day 4. He worked, he built, he created, and then he finished. Only after that did he say, it is good. That's a principle. That's a divine pattern. God honors the ones who see it through. Too many people ask for favor without finishing. They pray for blessings on things they haven't completed. But favor doesn't fall on intentions, it falls on obedience. Obedience is proven not when you agree with God's plan, but when you stick with it until the end. That's the kind of obedience he rewards. That's the kind of faithfulness he multiplies. He doesn't promote the one who buries the talent. He blesses the one who took what little they had and finished the assignment. There's a spiritual weight to finishing. It speaks of trust, of maturity, of alignment with heaven. When you finish, you are echoing the character of God himself. Jesus didn't say it's in progress. He said it is finished. It's finished. That's the level of commitment God is looking for. That's the standard. That's the blueprint. When you complete what God gave you, it becomes a testimony. It becomes proof that his grace was enough, that his strength carried you, that your faith stood firm. We keep asking God to open doors, to give us more, to elevate us. But how can he trust you with the next level when you haven't completed the current one? Nah, it's that doesn't promote people who abandon process. He honors those who finish even when it hurts, even when it's lonely, even when it doesn't look like it's working. That's when your worship becomes real, when you keep going without applause, without results, just because you know he called you to do it. Completion is an act of worship. It's saying, God, I trust you enough to keep going. It's saying, I believe your word enough to stay faithful to it. That's what God honors. That's what gets his attention. He's not impressed by your emotions. He's moved by your endurance. He's not looking for people who start fast. He's looking for people who finish strong. The reason some people never step into the fullness of their calling is because they quit right before the release. They stop when it gets hard. They put down what God told them to carry. But those who finish, those who press through the pain, through the silence, through the fear, those are the ones God elevates. Those are the ones he uses to shift nations, to break chains, to lead generations. So don't despise the process. Don't walk away from the thing God told you to build. Because when you finish it, you're not just completing a task. You're stepping into divine favor. And God always honors completion. Momentum doesn't come from starting. It's born in the finish. You don't gain power just by launching something. You gain power when you see it through. That's where confidence is forged. That's where belief starts to rise. Every time you finish something, no matter how big or small, you prove to yourself that you're capable. You train your spirit to endure. You shift from wishing to walk in authority. Because the truth is, finishing creates movement. And once you move, it's easier to keep moving. Say starting might feel exciting, but it doesn't carry weight. People love starting because it gives them the illusion of progress. But illusion doesn't build momentum. Build momentum, execution does. When you finish, it creates evidence. Evidence that you're not just talking. Evidence that your habits are lining up with your vision. And when you see that evidence, something in you starts to change. You stop questioning whether you can. You stop waiting for permission. You stop doubting the call. Why? Because now you've got proof. You've done it before. And if you've done it once, you can do it again. Finishing builds faith. Not just in God, but in the gift he placed inside you. That faith becomes fuel. You begin to trust your process. You begin to push past the old limits. You start carrying yourself differently, speaking differently, thinking differently, because now you're not living off potential, you're living off results. That shift is everything. That's what builds momentum. Not speed, not hype, but the quiet, steady discipline of finishing what you started. And the best part is, momentum multiplies. One finish turns into another. One victory gives you the courage to face the next challenge. You start stacking wins. You start building rhythm. And once you've got rhythm, quitting becomes harder. You've tasted what it feels like to complete the assignment. You've seen what happens when you don't give up. You felt that internal fire that comes from honoring your word, keeping your vow, doing what you said you would do, even when it wasn't convenient. But none of that happens if you don't finish. You could have all the vision in the world, all the talent, all the passion, but if you keep stopping halfway, you never build that inner momentum. You keep starting over, doubting yourself, second-guessing the call. And every time you quit, you slow yourself down. You reset your confidence. You disconnect from the flow that could have carried you into the next season. The breakthrough is in the finish. That's where God meets you with fresh strength. That's where momentum kicks in and starts moving things you used to struggle to push. You stop forcing and start flowing. But it starts with one thing, finishing. Finish what you started and you'll unlock a level of consistency, focus, and faith that no enemy can touch. Because now you've got movement. Now you've got momentum. And when momentum shows up, doors start opening, favor starts increasing, and destiny starts accelerating. Quitting isn't just a moment. It becomes a mindset. It starts as one decision, one excuse, one delay, and before you know it, it becomes your pattern. The more you quit, the easier it gets to walk away. The more you back down, the more comfortable you become with settling. Quitting, just like discipline, gets stronger with repetition. And that's the danger most people don't recognize. They think they're just pausing, just taking a break, but in reality, they're training themselves to stop when it gets hard. Every time you quit, you're sending a message to your spirit. We don't finish things. That message might feel small at first, but it echoes through your character. It shows up when it's time to commit. It shows up in your relationships, your goals, your faith, your dreams. You start doubting yourself not because you aren't capable, but because your track record is full of exits instead of finishes. Your mind starts to expect failure. Your body starts to expect surrender. Your spirit starts to believe the lie that maybe it's not meant to be. But understand this, quitting doesn't just cost you a goal. It costs you your confidence. It costs you momentum. It robs you of the discipline you were building. It shuts the door on what God was preparing you to handle. And the scariest part, you begin to normalize it. You start to justify it. And maybe it wasn't the right time. But maybe it just wasn't for me. No, maybe you just quit too soon. Maybe you walked away from the very thing that would have changed your life. And the more you make quitting your escape route, the less trust you have in your own voice. You stop believing yourself when you make a commitment because deep down, you know you're probably not going to follow through. You become comfortable with compromise. And once you become comfortable with compromise, purpose becomes blurry. Destiny feels distant, feels purpose demands endurance. Destiny requires a fight. And if quitting is your default, you'll never step into the fullness of what was prepared for you. You have to break the cycle. You have to get to a point where quitting is no longer an option, where finishing isn't a goal, it's the standard. That's how you rewire your mindset. You push through once, then again, and each time you build resilience. Each time you silence that voice that says you can't. Each time you remind yourself, I don't quit anymore. Your future is too important to keep starting over. Too many people are living in cycles, not seasons, because they never stay long enough to complete the process. But if you ever decide to stay, to endure, to finish, everything changes. You break the habit of quitting, and you build the habit of overcoming. And that habit will take you places talent never could. Intentions don't move the needle. The world isn't waiting on your ideas, your plans, or your passion. It's waiting on your execution. You don't get rewarded for what you're meant to do. You don't build legacy on what you hope to finish. Results are the currency. You can be the most talented, the most visionary, the most gifted person in the room, but if you don't deliver, if you don't produce, if you don't finish, the world will pass you by. Why? Because results are what speak. Results are what open doors. Results are what shift environments and change lives. Everybody has good intentions. People wake up every day saying they're going to start something. They plan to be better. They plan to chase the dream. But plans without action are just noise. You don't get a trophy for trying. You don't build trust from effort alone. You build trust by delivering, by doing what you said you would do, by showing up again and again until the outcome matches the vision. That's what separates the impactful from the invisible. Not thus follow through. Even in business and leadership and ministry, nobody is hiring you, investing in you, or following you based on what you're thinking about doing. They're watching your results, your fruit, your consistency. They're asking, how can they produce? Can they finish? Can they finish? Can they take something from vision to victory? If the answer is no, your good heart won't carry you. Your passion won't be enough. The world honors what you can bring to the table. And if you keep showing up with empty hands and full ideas, eventually people stop listening. Intentions are safe. They don't demand discomfort. They don't risk failure. That's why most people live in them. They're comfortable talking about what they're gonna do someday. But results require action. They require discipline. They require sacrifice. You can't fake results. You can't pretend your way into greatness. You have to show proof. You have to have fruit. And if you don't, people will move on to someone who does. This world is full of people with dreams. What is lacking are people who deliver. You want to stand out? Execute. You want to rise above average? Finish. Results speak for themselves. They build your reputation. They create opportunities. They draw influence. People will start coming to you, not because you talk the loudest, but because you built something they can see, touch, experience. That's what gets rewarded. That's what gets rewarded. So stop waiting for someone to recognize your potential. Stop thinking you're owed something just because your intentions are good. Start producing, start finishing. Let your results do the talking. Because at the end of the day, this world doesn't honor what you plan to do. It honors what you actually did. And when you live like that, doors don't just open for you, you kick them down. Your finish is bigger than you. It's not just about your goals, your dreams, or your success. It's about the people watching you, The people connected to your obedience. The people waiting to see what finishing looks like in real time. You don't even realize how many lives are tied to your discipline, your endurance, your follow through. Somebody out there is waiting on your testimony. Somebody is on the verge of quitting, and your finish will give them the faith to keep going. That's why you can't stop. That's why you can't fold. Because your finish is somebody else's breakthrough. Every time you finish, you give others permission to believe. You become a living example that it's possible, that it's worth it. It's worth it. That pain can be survived and purpose can be fulfilled. Some people don't need another motivational video. They need to see someone walk through the fire and come out the other side. They need to witness the struggle, the silence, the setbacks, and then the victory. Your finish isn't just a personal win, it's a light, a map, a signal that says, if I can finish, so can you. You might not feel qualified. You might feel like what you're building is small, but what you see as ordinary, someone else sees as extraordinary. What you're pushing through today might be the exact thing someone else will need faith for tomorrow. You finishing your book, your degree, your business, your healing, whatever it is, could be the moment that shifts someone else's mindset. And if you quit, they might never get that spark. If you stop, they might stay stuck. Understand this. People may never tell you, but they're watching. They're learning from your discipline. They're watching how you carry the weight, how you deal with disappointment, how you keep your integrity when it gets rough. And when they see you finish, not talk about it, not dream about it, but do it. It breaks something open in their spirit. It gives them evidence. It gives them hope. There's a generational impact in your finish. Your children are watching. Your community is watching. The next generation of leaders, dreamers, and visionaries is watching. And they don't need perfection. They need persistence. They need to see that real people with real struggles can still cross the finish line. That's how cycles break. That's how legacies start. Not in the hype of a beginning, but in a quiet, gritty, God-honoring finish. So even when it's hard, even when it feels like nobody sees you, remember, this is bigger than you. Your breakthrough is coming in to finish, but someone else's breakthrough is depending on it. Your finish might be the very thing that keeps them from giving up. That's why you fight. That's why you endure. Because the blessing isn't just what you get. It's what your obedience unlocks for others. Finish strong. Somebody needs it.